I tried to do something this morning that I honestly thought would be simple,
Oh, yeah.
and it ended up completely ruining my breakfast. I tried to count how many words I know.
Wow. That sounds like a recipe for a real headache. Why would you do that to yourself?
Maybe when I was feeling ambitious, I started listing them, and then I hit a word like run. Okay, I know run,
Mm-hmm.
but do I count running?
Mm-hmm.
What about ran? Is runner a totally different word?
Mm.
And suddenly I realized I don't. I don't actually know what a word is.
You are definitely not alone in that. That exact confusion is really the starting point for the text we're diving into today.
Right.
We're looking at Chapter 3 of Lexis, The Foundation of Words and Meanings by Patrick Hanks.
And our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's pretty specific. We want to strip down language to its studs.
Hmm.
You know, we tend to think of words as these static things just sitting in a dictionary waiting for us to use them. But Hanks argues that's completely wrong.
Oh, completely. He says the lexicon or mental dictionary is dynamic, it's messy, and honestly, it's a little bit out of control.
It really is.
He starts with this really provocative idea. He says words are the raw material of communication. You can communicate with just words and no grammar.
Right, like if I walk into a bakery in Paris and I just point and shout, croissant.
Exactly. You
Yep.
get your pastry, you might look a bit rude, but you get fed.
Sure.
But if you walk in and use perfect French grammar, but no nouns,
Yeah.
just empty structure, saying, I would like to have the ye, and then just stop. You starve.
So words are the bricks. Grammar is just the mortar.
They're the absolute bricks. But to your breakfast problem,
Mm-hmm.
how do you count the bricks?
Yeah.
This brings up the first major distinction in the text, and it's one that really solves your whole run versus running dilemma. It's the difference between types and tokens.
This was so helpful because honestly, I was going in circles.
Well, think of it this way. If I write the sentence, the cat sat on the mat, how many words is that?
The cat sat on the mat. 6 words. Easy.
Okay, that's the token count. A token is every single instance of a word appearing. So yes, there are 6 tokens.
Got it.
But how many distinct words are there?
Ah, I see what you're doing. The agapairs twice. So the cat sat on mat. 5.
Exactly. There are 5 types. A type is the unique form. A token is just every time it gets used.
Oh, here's where Hanks throws a wrench in the gears. Run and running are different types because, well, they're spelled differently.
Right.
But they feel like the same core word.
And that's where the idea of the lemma comes in. The lemma is sort of the family head.
The umbrella.
The umbrella, exactly. Run is the lemma. Ran, runs, running are just variations tucked under it. So if you really want to know how big your vocabulary is, you're counting lemmas.
Okay, that settles the counting issue. I can finish my list later. But then the source moves to something that genuinely surprised me. I sort of assumed that if we looked at a huge database of English...
That's the British National Corpus or something.
Yeah, with, 100 million words? I assumed eventually we'd see every word. We'd hit a ceiling.
You would think so. I mean, the dictionary is a finite book, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, you've got to run out of entries.
But the data says the complete opposite. The lexicon is, for all intents and purposes, infinite.
Hanks calls it incrementally infinite. No matter how big your database gets, about 50% of the words in it will appear only once.
That's the stat that I had to reread. 50%. That seems impossibly high.
It's the hapax legomena phenomena.
The one-hit wonders.
Essentially, yeah. In any huge sample of text, half the vocabulary is used exactly one time. And you'd expect that percentage to drop as you read more, right?
Of course. If I read the entire Library of Congress, surely I've seen it all by then.
But the percentage doesn't drop. It stays steady or even climbs a little. Because we are constantly inventing.
So where are all these new words coming from?
Oh, everywhere. Part of it is names, proper nouns count as words in this kind of analysis.
Yeah.
But a huge part is what Hanks calls phonological creativity. We make up noises that fit a gap.
Like blob.
Or nerd. Did you know nerd was invented by Dr. Seuss?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, it appeared in If I Ran the Zoo back in 1950. It was just a nonsense rhyme. But society kind of said, hey, we need a label for socially awkward intellectuals, and we just grabbed it.
That's amazing. But the text also talks about borrowing. And English is a notorious thief.
We steal from everyone. Latin, French, German, you name it. But the really interesting part is what happens when other languages steal from us. Hanks uses this great example of the German verb downloaden.
Oh, right, because they just took download from English.
They did. But German grammar is incredibly rigorous. To make the past participle like I have downloaded, you usually need a G prefix. So now, German speakers are in a crisis. Is it get downloaded?
That sounds really clunky.
Is it downloaded? Or maybe get downloaded?
It just breaks their system.
It totally breaks it. It shows that the rules of grammar are constantly fighting against the sheer creativity of the lexicon. We're always mashing things together. Look at suffixes.
Right.
We take Watergate, which was just the name of a hotel complex. We rip off the gate, and suddenly we have a suffix that means scandal.
Pizzagate, Deflategate.
Yeah.
We turned a hotel name into a linguistic tool.
Precisely. We abstracted the meaning. We just ignored the fact that a gate is a physical object and turned it into a concept.
So we've got this infinite, expanding universe of words. We have one-hit wonders, made-up sounds, stolen verbs. But, and here's the pivot I think is so crucial, we don't use them all.
Not even close.
In fact, we barely use any of them.
And this is where we have to talk about George Zip.
Zipf's law. Now, usually when I see a graph in a linguistics paper, my eyes just glaze over. But this is like the efficiency algorithm of human speech.
It really is. Zip was a linguist who realized that word frequency follows this strict mathematical power law. It's not random at all.
So the most common word is used twice as often as the second most common.
And 3 times as often as the third, and so on. It's a perfect harmonic progression. And it is terrifyingly consistent across languages.
In English, the champion is the.
The undisputed heavyweight king. It accounts for roughly 6% of everything we say or write.
Just that one word?
And if you take the top 10...
What are they?
The of and to, it was 4. Those 10 tiny words make up over 25% of all communication.
A quarter of our life is spent just saying 10 words.
It explains why those hapax words, the one-offs, are so common. We have this long tail. We rely on a tiny little toolkit for all the structure, the as and of, and then we just dip into that infinite bucket of rare words when we really, really need to be specific.
This feels like a trade-off. We compromise. We use frequent, simple words to save energy. But that leads to the philosophical core of this chapter. If we're using words so loosely, do they actually mean what we think they mean?
And this is the part that really upsets the traditional philosophers.
Right, because the old view, the Leibniz view, was that a word is basically a checklist.
Exactly. Necessary and sufficient conditions.
Yeah.
This was the gold standard for centuries. To be a bachelor, you must be 1 human, 2 male, and 3 unmarried. Check those boxes, you're a bachelor. Miss 1, you're not.
It's simple. It's logical. Why doesn't it work?
Okay. Is the Pope a bachelor?
Technically, he's human, male, and unmarried, so I guess, yes.
But if I said, my friend Dave is a bachelor and the Pope is a bachelor, you feel a difference.
Oh, a huge difference, yeah. One implies he's available. The other implies, well, he's the pontiff.
Exactly. The checklist fails because bachelor carries all this cultural baggage that isn't in the strict definition. And Hanks brings up Hillary Putnam's famous lemon example to really drive this home.
The blue lemon.
The blue lemon. If you define a lemon strictly as yellow, sour, and tart, and take a lemon, paint it blue, and inject it with sugar water.
It's still a lemon. It's just a really weird, ruined lemon.
But by the Leibniz definition, it's not a lemon anymore. It doesn't meet the conditions. So Putnam argued, we don't use definitions. We use stereotypes.
And stereotypes usually has a negative connotation, but here it just means a mental shortcut, right?
That's all it is. It's about cognitive efficiency. We have a little mental cartoon of a lemon. It's yellow, it's sour. That's the prototype. When we see something in the real world, we just compare it to that prototype. We don't check a list of rules. We just ask, does this look enough like the standard version?
This is Eleanor Rocha's work on birds.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
If I say bird, what pops into your head?
A robin. Or maybe a sparrow. Something small that flies.
You don't immediately picture a penguin.
No, penguins are. They're outliers.
But a penguin is 100% a bird. Roche argued that our mental categories have a center and a periphery. The robin is in the center. It's prototypical. The penguin is way out on the edge.
It's less birdie.
It's less birdie. So the dictionary lies to us. It gives us these crisp black and white definitions. But in our heads, words are fuzzy. They have a bullseye of meaning and then a lot of gray area around it.
And that gray area is where the magic happens. Because we don't just use words, we bend them. And this brings us to the concept of the generative lexicon.
James Pustojovsky's work. This stuff is fascinating because it argues that words don't just sit there. They actively change based on what they're standing next to.
The example in the text was the verb enjoy.
A very, very vague verb. But watch what happens when we pair it up. If I say, I enjoyed the book, what did I actually do?
You read it.
Okay. I enjoyed the beer.
You drank it.
I enjoyed the movie.
You watched it.
See, The word enjoy itself doesn't contain the meaning read or drink or watch, but the noun that follows it, the book, the beer, it sort of coerces the verb into taking on that specific meaning. The context generates the meaning on the fly.
It's like the word is a chameleon. It takes on the color of the words around it.
And sometimes we force it even harder. There's this idea from Yorick Wilkes called preference semantics.
Okay.
The verb drink, for example, prefers a living subject. The boy drank. The snake drank.
But we say, my car drinks gas.
A car is a machine. It can't drink. But your brain doesn't just crash. It says, okay, the host is being metaphorical here. I'll just override the preference and make it work.
We're incredibly flexible.
We are. And computers hate it. Computers want that Leibniz checklist. They want hard rules. Humans want vibes. We want good enough.
This explains why synonyms are so tricky. The text talked about frames. I always thought land and ground were pretty much synonyms.
They overlap, but they live in different frames.
Yeah.
This is Fillmore's frame semantics. If I say, the pilot is on the ground, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
But if I say, the sailor is on the ground.
It sounds weird. You'd say the sailor is on land.
Exactly. Ground triggers an air travel frame. Land triggers a sea travel frame. Can't just swap the brakes. You have to bring the whole wall with you.
Which brings us to the final, and I think maybe the most practical insight from Hanks and John Sinclair, the idiom principle. This feels like it ties everything together.
It really does. It fundamentally changes how we view sentence construction.
Because up until this point, we've been talking as if we pick words one by one. I pick I, then I pick enjoy, then I pick beer.
That's called the open choice principle. And we do that sometimes, you know, when we're being very careful or poetic. But Sinclair says that mostly we're just lazy. We use the idiom principle.
So we just grab prefabricated chunks of language.
Totally. We're grabbing phrases that are already put together. If I say the word silly and I ask you to finish the phrase, what comes to mind?
Silly goose, or maybe silly mistake.
Right. You don't say silly tragedy. You don't say silly mathematics, even though grammatically you absolutely could. The word silly just hangs out with a very specific crowd. We call that collocation.
So we aren't really choosing words. We're choosing clusters.
You shall know a word by the company it keeps. That was the famous maxim from J.R. Firth. We speak in chunks. Of course. In fact, at the end of the day, we just treat these as single units.
And that connects right back to Zipf's law, doesn't it? It's all about efficiency. It's easier to grab a whole chunk than to build a sentence from scratch every single time.
Precisely. It lowers the cognitive load. And this all leads to this beautiful image that Hanks leaves us with, the double helix of language.
Like DNA.
Exactly like DNA.
Oh,
One strand is the rules, the grammar, the logic, the open choices you can make. The other strand is the idioms, the habits, the chunks, the metaphors we rely on.
And true communication is the dance between them.
Totally. If we only followed the rules, we'd sound like 1980s robots. I'm walking. No shop.
Right.
But if we only used idioms, we'd just be speaking in cliches and sound like a bad politician. We need both. We rely on the idioms for speed, and we fall back on the rules for precision.
It's funny, after reading all this, I've become so self-conscious about my own speech. The source mentions that our own intuition about language is often deeply flawed.
We are terrible witnesses to our own crime.
We think we're following these strict definitions, but the data just proves we're using prototypes and stereotypes. We think we're choosing words freely, but actually we're just recycling chunks.
It makes you wonder, if we don't even really understand the tool we use to form our thoughts, do we actually understand the thoughts themselves?
That is a question for a much, much longer deep dive, but for now I think I'm going to go enjoy a coffee. And thanks to Pustajovsky, you know that by enjoy, I mean drink.
And by coffee, I assume you mean the prototype of a hot black liquid, not a blue one that's been injected with sugar.
Don't ruin it for me. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.